Around midnight on June 16, 1937, an anxious young man, dark-eyed and good-looking, slipped out of his London home, stole away from his wife and child, and set out to meet the woman he loved. 2 years after Laurence Olivier had first glimpsed Vivien Leigh, a woman of such transcendent beauty and intoxicating allure that she had left him drunk with desire, he was under her spell. Day in and day out, they would sneak off the set of their new movie or sit lost amid a swirl of dreams, avatars of the lovers they would later play, Romeo and Juliet, whose lesson they should probably have learned, that violent delights have violent ends and in their triumph die. Whether they thought they were fooling anybody, I don't know, said a crew member, but we all knew that here were two people hopelessly in love. What drew them to each other with such fierce power, blinding them to duty and danger, to all sense of right and wrong, pushing them to the point where, this very night, they were about to run away? Was it simply lust, the devouring sexual greed that nobody who knew them could ignore? Or was it something else, an affinity of the heart, mind, and soul? Long after their passion had faded, when their ecstasy had turned to agony, and their turbulent romance had left them battered and scarred, Olivier searched for an explanation. It was a virus, he said, a disease, a compulsion as mighty as any in legend or myth. It felt like an illness, he wrote, but the remedy was unthinkable. Only an early Christian martyr could have faced it. Virtue seemed to work upside down. Love was like an angel. Guilt was a dark fiend. At its every surge, Macbeth would haunt me. Then comes my fit again. For cynics, this was self-aggrandizement. For others, mere indulgence. Only Larry's wife, Jill Esmond, collateral damage left in the wake of her husband's affair, understood it for what it was, even when it had turned into a fireball that incinerated her marriage. Real passion? I've only seen it that once, she told their son. If you are ever hit by it, God help you. There's nothing you can do. And yet there was something Olivier could have done. 3 weeks before he and Vivien fled, they had traveled to Denmark, planning to stage Hamlet in the place where it was set, with the 30-year-old Larry as the prince and the 23-year-old Vivien as Ophelia. Equipment, costumes, and props had been loaded onto trucks, the trucks ferried across the North Sea, the cast and crew flown to the coastal town of Helsingør, where they were scheduled to perform for a week on the ramparts of Kronborg Castle. Only, hours before they were due to go on, all hell broke loose. A thunderstorm cracked open the sky, water flooded the battlements along with thousands of makeshift seats, and any hope of salvaging the production as conceived was doused by the storm. Moving indoors to a hotel ballroom, the troupe scrambled to reconfigure their work as theater in the round, with barely enough time to arrange their entrances and exits before an audience of royals and dignitaries began to filter in. The play seemed doomed. And yet, somehow, despite the chaos, this Hamlet was a sensation, sealing Olivier's reputation as one of the most dazzling actors alive. The next day, he was in the midst of rehearsals when an incident took place that shook him to the core. What happened is unclear, but after an explosive confrontation with Vivien, he reappeared before his colleagues, ashen, and said something about Viv having gone bonkers, having attacked him, having had a fit of some kind, according to an early report. When Vivien emerged, she was unrecognizable from her usual vivacious self, and spoke not a word to anyone, just staring blankly into space. This was more than a momentary pique, more than a terrified ingenue's anxiety-fueled temper tantrum. It was as if a flare had been sent up from the innermost recesses of her psyche, warning Olivier of trouble ahead. Why she had erupted, he did not know. Whether she would do so again, neither of them could predict. And yet it was obvious this exquisite diamond was flawed. Once, outsiders might have said she was possessed. Now, 250 years after the last witch had been burned at the stake, and decades into the age of Freud and Jung, people still knew so little about mental health that nobody understood she was seriously ill. Larry could have walked away, could have ended his affair then and there and returned to Jill, who had accompanied him on this voyage only to be shunted off on sightseeing tours. But he didn't. Rather than extricate himself, he plunged deeper. Rather than step back, he surged forward. Once home, he and Vivien vowed they would leave their spouses for good. Reason was powerless to stop them. Passion conquered all. This book is a study of passion, not the soft, sentimental kind of Hollywood movies and Victorian romance, but the sort that engulfs, overwhelms, and sometimes destroys. The sort for which the Oliviers became famous. Half a century since Vivien's death, and more than 3 decades since Larry's, they continue to haunt us. There are books and blogs about them, conferences and symposia. There are documentaries and exhibitions, and even a collection of scholarly essays published by Manchester University Press. And yet they remain strangely veiled, their story wrapped in half-truths, conundrums, and lies, proof positive of Gabriel Garcia Marquez's adage that all human beings have 3 lives: the public, the private, and the secret. They were emblems of a certain class and culture that sunk as deep beneath the waves as the ocean liners that ferried them across the seas. But they didn't belong to that class and culture at all. They were lovers as famous as Burton and Taylor or Bogey and Bacall, but their kind of love often seemed closer to hate. And they were the first married couple since the advent of sound to become global celebrities, but they despised celebrity and even the medium that led to their fame. They appeared to have it all, and yet in their own minds they were blighted, doomed by a mental illness neither of them understood, which transformed their relationship from the stuff of dreams into a living nightmare. This is a study of that relationship. It is not so much the biography of 2 exceptional individuals as the biography of a marriage.